let's start our third session, which is again on ES6. So what is the agenda for today? So we are going to see some of the concepts which has been introduced into ES6. The concepts are set and map, which is very similar to Java set and map, but how it is different, we will speak. Then the rest and spread. So it's again a very easy concept. You will understand it in a 5 minutes time. So it's very easy, rest and spread. It's not the REST API, but it's a way of how you create and create and send the parameters, function parameters. So this REST is different from REST API. Okay. So rest and spread. Iterators, we will see basically the what are iterators and how you can create your own iterator, but we will not go deep into that because we are more focused on generators. So we will speak about generators. We will create some of the examples around to generators. Classes and inheritance and get and set. We have already covered in the last session. The last part I covered was on classes, right? So still, I will again cover that for the people who may have not joined the last session. And then the module part. So we'll touch upon the module for a bit, but you will understand more about module when we will actually work in Angular 2, because there you will see working of those modules. So modules are we cannot run the code without having a proper kind of setup, because you won't be able to see the actual output. So we will see how we create a module, and then once we go into the Angular 2, we will see how we can use the modules and how we can leverage ES6 module feature in Angular 2 application. Okay, so let's start with set and map. Now the first thing is set. So I think most of you are from other programming languages. Most of you have worked in other programming languages. So set is basically a data structure. So in Java also, set is a data structure where you can keep your unique entries. So set doesn't allow duplicate entries. JavaScript has tried to build some similar data structure. The problem here is you can not insert duplicate values if your type of the entry is of primitive type. Okay, if not primitive, then set doesn't have any feature to identify whether the entry is duplicate or not. Okay, so basically this set, even if it is a set, you can have duplicate entries if you are having custom objects inserted into set. But if you are entering primitives, then duplicate entries will not be, duplicate entries will not be allowed. Okay. Again, same thing with the maps. So you can create a key value pair in map, just like in Java. We create a key value pair, right? Set is a single value which you insert. So it's a kind of data structure where you only have values, list of values. Maps are basically a key value pair. So map is again a data structure which has a key value pair, and you can create this kind of map in JavaScript ES6 onwards. Now iteration over to set and map is very easy. So there are various ways of iterating over to set and maps. We will see it in the example how we can do that. Okay. And then there are various methods associated with set and maps. Okay, so let's do some exercise, probably some practicals around it. So how you create a set in JavaScript using ES6 features. So it's very simple. There is a set functions available in JavaScript which you can use to create a set. So I will say sample set is equal to set. This is how you create your set in JavaScript. Now how you add some value in set. So you will say simple set dot add, and you will say 1. Okay, so I can actually write this into console so that it would be easy for understanding purpose. I will say sample test is equal to new set. Okay. Sample test. Okay, I will rename it sample set is equal to new. I will do one thing. I will open a new browser and then I will open the console so that we don't get interrupted. Okay, so variable set is equal to new set. Okay, now what I'll do, I will say set dot add 1. So it will add 1 into the set. Now you can do set dot get set doesn't have a get method actually. Set has add and then you need to iterate over to set. You can have has to check whether that particular entry has there or not. So you can say has 1 and then it will return true. Okay. Now if you try to add similar value, it will not add any value inside that. So if I say set dot size, what is the, it will give you 1 only. So even if you have tried to add 2 values, it's giving me 1 value because it doesn't allow duplicates. But if I'm having custom object, let's say obj1 is equal to some object and then variable obj2 is equal to some object, right? So initially it looks similar to us. Object1 and object2 look similar to us. But when I do set add obj1 and set dot add obj2, it actually adds both the object, right? So it means for the custom type, set doesn't restrict duplicate entries, but for the primitive types, it does restrict the entry. So basically set is a data structure. You can create a set, whatever set does, you can still achieve it there, but set has various utility methods. So if at all you are interested in that, you can create your set. Otherwise, whatever set is providing functionality that can be achieved with an array also. Okay, so you do not need to separately work on set. Now, this is about creation of set and then adding and retrieving we will see, but basically adding values into set, checking whether a particular value is there or not into the set, right? Now we will create a map. So again, it's very simple. You write map is equal to new map. Okay, and then you say map dot set 1, which is a key, and value probably is ABC. Okay, so map is created with value 1 and the key as 1 and the value as ABC. You can create as many entries as key value. Okay, in map you can actually get the values based on key. So you can pass 1 and then the value you can read. Now if you try to set duplicate key again, you see it overwrites the existing value. So that's how your Java map works, right? So the same way JavaScript map also works. It means if you are having a duplicate key, it will override the value of the existing key. So that's how you create a map into JavaScript. Very simple. You have a new map, kind of map is function, basically a class, and you use set and get methods to actually populate the values into map. Map has some other values as other functions as well. Again has, so sorry, you can mention like this. So So it will check whether that particular key does exist in map or not. Okay. So that's how you work with the map. Is useful because map is a key value pair, but set I personally feel is not that useful. The reason is uh, whatever you can achieve with set, you can still achieve with an array. An array is the primary basic data structure, simplest data structure available. So I definitely prefer an array over to set. Map is again a different functionality, so it provides you key value pair. So key value pair, if you want a data structure where you want to store the key value, then map is really a very good data structure to look for. Okay. Now we need to iterate over to this map, right? We need to so map, you have a get method, but set also you want to retrieve the values, and you can retrieve it using for loop. So there are various ways you can retrieve these values from map and set. And now we will try to retrieve some values from set. So we can have a for loop. I will say let value of set which I have created, and then I will do console.log value, right? So it will print all the values of set. So this is the simplest way how you iterate over to set. Now you can have like this also, set dot for each. Then you have a function which has a value, and then you have a body where you will say console.log value. So that also gives you the same result. So you can use the for each also. I have used arrow function here. You can use normal function as well. You can have a function with value. Okay. So you can write for each like this also. So this is basically arrow function. I'm just writing so that you can also get revision of arrow function. So for each also useful. Now this is how you iterate over to set, right? But if you want to iterate over to map, you can still use the for each for method. So I will say let entry of map, right? And I will say inside I will say console.log entry. So you can iterate over to like this. So probably this entry has a key and value. So you can have an entry dot, I guess, key. No, but yeah, entry 0 is your key plus. So entry is basically, it returns you array, two index array where you can get the key value pair. So this is how you can iterate the map as well. Okay. If you don't want to iterate like this, you can have various methods created by map as well. So you can have let entry of map dot entries. This actually gives you key. So when I write like this, oh, okay. Okay, so this way also you can iterate same way here. So instead of map, you can have map.entries as well. So both does the same thing. Okay, you can have map.values as well. That will only give you values of the map. Now here also you can use the for each method. So I will say map.for each. Here I would be having two parameters. One is key and another is the value, and then the method body will be console dot, probably I will use expression here, ES6 expression. So I can have a key and then dollar value. Some problem here. Okay. Okay. So using for each, you can iterate over to map. Now that function will take two arguments. One is the key and another is the value. So if you have, if you keep two parameters in set as well, then the key becomes your index. Okay. So if I have set.forEach, we took only one argument into function, right? Function value only. But instead of that, if you take key value, and then if you try to write console.log, dollar key and value, then you will see the indexes as getting printed, right? So basically you can have key value as well printed along with set, but this is not the right way. Right way is having only single index, single value in the for each for set, and having key value for the map. Okay, so you will get a value and the key. So it's actually opposite. So it should be like this. It's value and key. It's like this. So first value and the key, right? So basically this is how you iterate over to map. This is how you iterate over to set. It's very simple. If you are from Java, then it doesn't make that much of complexity. If you don't know data structure itself, then you may need to read about what is set and what is map. In general, set is a unique list of values. In JavaScript, uniqueness only has in Unix is only restricted on the primitive types. If you are having custom type, then you are allowed to enter the duplicate values as well, because in JavaScript there is no way to compare the custom objects. Like in Java we have comparable, comparator, all those stuff, right, to compare two objects, equals and hash code overriding those methods. But in JavaScript we don't have anything like that, and that's the reason the uniqueness is restricted for the primitive types but not for the custom types. Same way in map, you can create key value page. Your key cannot be duplicate if it is of type primitive. If it is not of type primitive, then you are allowed to have the duplicate keys as well. And you use this simple for loop into simple for loop to iterate over to this set and map. Now you can use actually destructuring as well while iterating over to loop. So like this, right? If you remember our last session, we used destructuring. So I will say console.log dollar key and then dollar. Please let me know if you don't understand something. Like this. So it's destructuring, right? So we if you remember last session, destructuring means like this, something like this. Right? This is called destructuring. So 1 will take 1, 2 will take 2, and 3 will take 3. So this destructuring we have already covered in last session. We can use in the for loop also while iterating over to data structure. Okay. Oops, sorry. Now going back to our slide. WeakMap. This is a concept called. This is a concept created in ES6 to increase the memory utilization and to increase the performance when somebody uses data structure. Okay, so instead of creating a map, you can create a weak map. Now, what is the difference between map and weak map? Basically, when you create a map, the key value pair when you create, that has a strong point entry. It means even if after the execution that entry still remains in the memory of your browser. But when you work with the weak map, what happens is when your execution stack is over for a function or for a block of code, whatever the weak map entries you have created will be available for garbage collection. So garbage collection happens in the browser itself to free out the memory. And when that happens, that memory will be freed out where weak map entries are stored. So weak map provides better performance compared to map, and it's always advisable to use weak map as and where useful, right? So as I said, using data structure on the browser, I would not recommend. But if you want to do some data manipulations using map, then fine, you can use map. Set is definitely not needed if you can achieve writing some bit of logic in array, then set is not required. Otherwise, if you want a key value pair kind of stuff, you can go for weak map instead of map. Now, what exactly it means is it's very simple. So I'll create one entry of immediately a invocable function expression. So this is what I have created like this. So if you see here, I have considered A as a map and B as a weak map. Okay, consider A as a map and B as a weak map. Now, consider A as the some object, B as some object, and then I have a map and weak map object. So I'm yet to write one line here. Variable weak map is equal to new weak map. Okay, so this is how I have created a map and weak map. So inside a map, I am putting a object as the key and value as 1. And again in the weak map, I am putting a value b as the key and 2 as the value. Okay, so as soon as I hit enter, the function will be executed, the scope will be ended, right? But the problem is this particular entry will still be there into the memory of the browser. Still, you may not be able to access it. Okay, so if I try to say map.get okay, you may not be able to access it because A is a variable and that is out of the scope. So there is no way you can retrieve the entry. But the mapping between that key and value is still there in the memory. Now, as compared to WeakMap, as soon as the execution ends, this particular entry is removed from the memory as soon as one garbage collection happens. So this entry will be marked as to be garbage collector, whereas this entry will still be live. So if you are using a map, then you are actually making your browser's life very short, because if you are working on a large set of map, then you may eat out lots of memory on your browser, because those entries will never be garbage collected and it will always be live, which you never be wanted, right? So always prefer WeakMap, where you can create the entries, you can use it, and as soon as your function ends, as soon as your execution scope ends, that particular entry becomes available for garbage collection by the browser. So that is WeakMap. You similarly you have WeakSet.
Hi, Rahul.
Yes.
Yeah, can you please explain this once again, the weak map thing?
Okay. So you what is the problem? What is the confusion? Where exactly in the WeakMap is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to know that. Yeah, I just want to know that why that error is coming. A is not defined. So
Okay, because we are out
yeah.
of the scope of the function, right? So uh, JavaScript variables are function
Okay.
scoped. It means
Oh yeah.
if,
Okay. Fine. Yeah. Okay, got it. I didn't notice that. Okay.
okay. But what I'm trying to say is, even if the variable is not accessible in your console, the entry is still there in the memory. Okay, it means it will never be garbage collector, and that's the problem in map, and that's why weak map concept has been there now.
Yeah.
Why?
So in weak map, if like after setting the value in the map, it will go out from the memory, right? After we
No.
use that value.
So when you create a weak map's entry
Yeah.
is always function scoped, or if you use a let, then it will be a block scoped. So as soon as you are
Okay.
out of the block, or as soon as you are out of your function, then only it will be available for garbage collection.
Okay. Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Similarly, you have weak set, but as I said, I prefer weak set. I prefer an array. Now, weak map, basically you do not have all the methods which are available in map, right? So some methods, if I
Hi
create,
Rahul, a small
yes,
doubt.
yes,
So let is also used for block scoping, right?
sorry,
Let
yes, let,
Yeah, let keyword is being used for block scope, right? So if you define
yeah, let.
yeah, let variable with map, then what's the difference between the normal map and the weak map?
No, see, the problem is not that. Even you are not able to access A here, right? If you
Yes,
try
true,
to
true.
access map here, you will not be able to access here because it is a function scoped variable. But
Sure.
the memory entry is still there in the browser.
True. Then what is the let variable scope or garbage collector when it will create that let variables?
See, memory is a difference. There is a difference between memory allocation, memory utilization, okay, and there is a difference of
Yeah, true.
accessing a variable. Okay, now when you create a variable, it gets allocated some memory and then it takes some space onto the memory. Along with that, you access that variable within some scope. Now it doesn't mean that if you lose the access, that variable will also lose out from the memory. It doesn't mean like that.
Yeah, true. Mm, okay.
Even in Java, you create the objects, but that object will be freed up only when the garbage collection happens.
So when will happen that garbage collection, garbage collector, when garbage collector clear those variables from memory usually?
It is generally up to browser's algorithm, how they, so it depends on how much memory browser sees as a free. Probably the browser sees that, okay, my lots of memory are now full, then he starts running garbage collector, because garbage collector is a memory intensive operation and browser
Yeah.
doesn't do that frequently.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Uh, so as I said, weak map doesn't have all the methods associated with it like a map. So I get a map is equal to new map, and I create a weak map as new weak map. Then if I compare the methods, right, you will see that there are lots of different. So here you have a size, right? You have some of the methods. So if I have a weak map, you see some of the methods so first very noticeable thing is you don't have scroll here, right? When I was doing map, you were having scroll, see? So that many of methods are not there with weak map. Okay, so that's the difference. So probably you don't have size method here, you don't have values method here, you don't have entries method as well, right? So these are some of the limited functionality which has been provided by WeakMap. Okay. Same way you have weak set, but as I said, don't go with the set. Always prefer and try to achieve functionality with them.
So Rahul,
Yes.
if they yeah, so if there is not a function like entries function or entry, so how do we iterate through a weak map? Like, is there any process for iterating through a weak map?
No, entries method is not there, but WeakMap you can still iterate through for each, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
maybe
okay, fine.
yeah. Now like this, just to give you the example. You can still do like this. You can still iterate like this. Okay. Now going
Yeah,
to
thanks.
okay. Now rest and second part is spread. So this is a very easy concept actually. Rest and spread, and both are completely opposite of each other. So generally what happens is ES6 has provided lots of feature to access function attributes. Okay, so access as a function attribute as a collated variable or as a spread variable. So when we speak about rest, okay, what rest can do is you can mention a parameter using 3 dots. So in Java we have dots as well, but that comes after the literals, basically the type. Here it's before, it's basically in Java it is suffixed, in JavaScript it is prefixed. Now these 3 dots can be used as an array. So I'll explain you how we can do that. So let's say I have a I will write it in here. So let's say I have a function and it take, let's say 3 dot and arg. Okay, so let's iterate over to this. Okay, and what I do is now calling this function is possible using this. So what I'm doing is, you do not need to mention all the possible arguments here. You can write 3 dots and then you can receive um, all the parameters using this. So if you can see like this. Okay. Now the constraint in this is, this has to be your last argument. So if I have like this x, y, and then this, then 1 and 2 will be considered as xy and the rest will be considered as arguments. So if I clear the console, if I now again paste it, you will see 3, 4, 5, 6, because 1 and 2 will be mapped to xy and then the rest of this thing will be mapped to your array. This is called rest parameters. This is called rest parameters. It's a very simple concept. Does it really require or does it really help? Sometimes yes, because you may be writing a function which can take 2 arguments, 3 arguments, 4 arguments, and based on the number of arguments your functionality may change. Okay, in Angular also you will see some of the functions, framework functions, which takes 2 arguments, then it does something else. It takes 3 arguments, then it has other features as well. In those cases you can write such functions. Okay, it was actually there in ES5 as well, basically in the older version, but it has been changed now to make it more semantics. So in older version, how it was like, if I create a function, I will again write it here. If I create a function as ES5 function and it doesn't have any arguments, still I can do like this. Console.log value. Now I can call this ES5 function with 1, 2, 3, 4 and whatever. It means every function in JavaScript has one unnamed argument which is called arguments. Every function in JavaScript has this piece of parameter by default. So even if you don't have any arguments, you can still call this function using this, and then you can access those parameters using arguments. Okay, so if I execute this, you will be able to see that you will be iterating over to what is the problem? I think argument is the older version, so I will try to make it arguments.length. So ultimately what I'm trying to say is, you have still in ES5 you have one unnamed parameter which is called arguments. Arguments I think it should work. The name was arguments only. I hope I am not wrong with the name. Yeah. So as I said, only thing I'm trying to here is, in ES5 also you have unnamed argument which is called unnamed parameter which is called arguments, but now it has been sophisticatedly done in ES6 because ES6 is, as I said in starting, right, ES6 is now trying to be more towards Java, right? There are more developers of Java, and then JavaScript team is looking for more and more developer community to join JavaScript, because nowadays end-to-end application can be built through JavaScript, single language. It was previously not possible, right? You use JSP, you use servlet, and then you may write some HTML, CSS for UI purpose, but still at the front end side you may use JSP or PHP. PHP is more used in the backend side, but what I'm trying to say is it was very difficult to make the entire application in a single language. Now it's very much possible using JavaScript, and because of that JavaScript is becoming so popular, and people are working, the major organization like Microsoft, Mozilla, those are working towards making JavaScript robust end-to-end language. So you start your UI with JavaScript, you write your middleware in JavaScript, and you write your backend in JavaScript. And that's why even Node.js has given that power, right? So that's why JavaScript is becoming more lookalike of Java, because Java developers are huge, and it would be very easy to move Java developers to JavaScript. So that's the commercial idea behind writing ES6 in more aligned with Java. Okay. So that is what is REST parameters. Now exactly opposite to it is, so this is all about so this is arguments I was telling about in ES5, and then this is how you iterate over to the REST parameters for each. Exactly opposite to it is spread. So what we did while calling, we were passing number of parameters, and we were mapping it to one single array. Now what we will do, we will, while calling the function, we will pass single array, and then we will spread it in various variables. It's similar to destructuring. If you remember our last session, it's similar to our destructuring. So how this function will be looking now. So here you will be having x, y, z, and then here what you do is you will create an array mentioning 1, 2, 3, and then here you will pass array. Exactly opposite of what we did in REST. Oops, sorry. So I need to change the function definition as well, right? Because we don't have any args now. So I would be having console.log x, y, z. Okay, so it's exactly opposite what we did, right? Now if our array is of 1 and 2, okay, then how we call display, we can call like this, array, and then we can write 3. So here, if you remember, our last argument needs to be REST parameter. While calling, if you are using such type of 3 dots mechanism, your first argument needs to be spread parameters. So this is called spread parameters. This is called, when we use in the function itself, it is called REST parameter. As simple as that. REST and spread. Okay. Any questions? Now,
Hello.
the question would be whether we would be using all these features in Angular 2 or not. Okay, so it's up to you. It's all about you. You can write your business logic in plain JavaScript supporting ES5, but these are all features to make a developer write a good code, and that's up to you whether you use it or don't use it. But if you ask me, sometimes it is useful when you are building a complex functionality, right? The spread and rest parameters are useful. If you are building really complex functions where you are not sure how many arguments your function would be receiving at the runtime, then only this is useful. Otherwise, it may not be that useful. So let's go to our content. Let's see what is there. Okay, iterators. I'm not much interested into that, but I'll explain you what is this. So in ES6, you can create your own iterator, which generally you don't require. Okay, so I have tried my level best to find out any practical aspects of creating our own iterator. Okay, and also generators are, which we are going to cover, generators, those are much more powerful than iterators. So I am just giving you one example in slide, and I'm just explaining what is that. So a iterator is basically an object only, which contains one method. That method name is next, and the responsibility of that method is to give the results one by one, iterating over to the input argument. Okay, so instead of writing for loop, you can have a method which will be your iterator and which will be giving you output of all the array elements. Now generally you don't require it, right? When you need custom iterators, when you want to manipulate retrieved value, when you want to manipulate retrieved value, still this can be achieved with for loop. A simple for loop can do any iteration. A simple for loop can do any iteration. I don't know why this fancy stuff is there in ES6. You also can search. If you find any logical answer, you can let me know as well. There is no harm. So an iterator is nothing but an object which has a function called next, and that next has the logic of iterating over to the input argument. So if you see the example, we have a create array iterator which is supposed to iterate over to array. So I have taken one index and then I am returning the object which is nothing but next method. So that next method is checking whether my index is less than the length of the array or not. Until unless it is less than, it is sending value of that array with done as false. So this particular object you need to return. So you need to have done as well, because done is basically used to stop the iterator. So when, as and when done is true, the iterator will be stopped. Okay. In generator, you do not need to do all this. We will see it. Generator is more easy and more flexible than this. But you can have this in your knowledge that there is something called iterators in ES6, which you can create by your own. You write a function. In that function, you return the object. Why object? Because you see here curly braces, right? So you return an object, JavaScript object, which has only one parameter, which is next function. And that next function has all the business logic of iterating over element. Now, while that next function returns the value, it has to return the done as well as a false or true. So when done is true, iteration ends. Okay. So if you see the function, it's very simple function, very simple array iterator, which at all we don't, we at all not require this array iterator. But just for creating example, we put it here. So important part is this next method. Okay. Now This is related concept to iterators. Iterables. Iterables are, I think, as name suggests, any object which you can iterate over using iterator. It's iterables. So an array is iterables. A set, a map is iterables. A nested object is iterables, right? So any object which is which can be iterated over using custom iterator or using any looping mechanism, it means those objects are iterables. Okay. Now here in example, basically there is one concept called symbol in ES6. Basically, symbol is used to create immutable types. Now this can be achieved with constants, and constants we have already learned. So if you are looking for immutable types, you can still go for constants. But in ES6 you have symbol, and then every iterables objects has symbol.iterator property. This one. Now if you don't understand this, leave it, because this is not we are going to do in Angular 2 as well, and this is something supplement to the next concept which we are going to learn, which is generators. Okay, so iterators are obsolete if you know generators. If you understand generators, then iterator becomes obsolete. So we do not need to go in samples for this. Personally, I don't feel like that, but if you want to learn more about that, you can still search, and if you understand something, please mail me. I'll try to explain that as well. But as I said, only for interest purpose you can learn. Otherwise, there is no dependency on this topic on our further studies and Angular 2 as well. In fact, generators are also not required, but because iterators are we are not giving focus on, I will give focus on generators because generators are more powerful. Okay, so iterators and iterables are very simple. So it's a theory. Iterables are any object which can be iterated, and it has symbol.iterator by default created by JavaScript itself. So it's a theory which we may need to remember. Next topic is generators. So these are a new concept, and sometimes you may find some fancy stuff like this asterisk function, and you may be worried about what is this and what is that, right? So generators are kind of, you can assume it as a iterator only, but a powerful iterator, very flexible iterator in such a way that you can control your iteration. So in a for loop, when you start iterating, it goes till the end, right? It goes till the end. You don't have any control. Once you start the iteration of something, you don't have control over the iteration. It means you cannot pause your iteration in between. Can you? You don't, right? You cannot, because you don't have any control over the iteration. But generators give that flexibility to the developer to start and pause the iteration. To start and pause the iteration. An excellent feature, sometimes very useful. Sorry for that. I am finding it. Okay. So, as I said, a normal iteration process doesn't give you control over to iteration, whereas generator give you control over to iteration. It means you can start and you can resume, you can pause your iterations. So how we will see. Let's go to our so first thing is syntax. How you create generators? You create generators using asterisk. Like this. You create a generator using asterisk. Now this asterisk, sometimes you will feel, you will read somewhere this asterisk is placed here with the name. sometimes you will read this asterisk is with the function, and sometimes you will see this asterisk in between. The syntax which has been, so everything works. Okay, this works. All three syntax works. The syntax which has been provided by Mozilla is this function asterisk. Okay. Now this is a simple generator which doesn't do anything. Now you want to create a generator which can start, pause, and resume the iteration. How you can pause your iteration in generator? There is a method called yield. Okay, you use yield. When you say yield, so I'm just writing some sample, okay? Then I'll explain. So I am not taking any input argument. I'm just iterating over to 1, 2, 3, 4. I just want to show the example of resuming and pausing the iteration. So what is this yield for? Yield means return the value. So yield syntax is like this. Yield and whatever expression you want to give. So I have given, at this point of time, I have just given a simple expression. You can even call the function, which we will see soon. Okay, so any expression, any valid expression can be associated with yield. Now what yield does is, yield returns the value of the expression and then pauses until next gets called on the generator. It means on every generator you can call .next. When you create a function using asterisk, it becomes a generator. Because it becomes a generator, a function called next gets available to it. When you start your generator, we will see how. When you start your generator, first thing, it will execute all the statements until yield. So if I have a statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, this whole statement will be executed until you find yield. Yield means pause until somebody calls next. Clear? It's very simple. Yield means pause until somebody calls next. Now this is generator. Now how you use this generator? So I will say variable generator is equal to sample generator. Simple. But when I write this function doesn't get executed automatically. If it would have been a normal function, you would have got all the results in generator. But because it's generator asterisk function, you will not start this function. This function will not be started automatically. It will be started only when somebody calls next. So if I copy it, if I paste it here, you see only one value is coming. And this is, as I said, you need to create them in iterator if you are building your own iterator. Here generator gives that automatically. It gives the object with value and done as well. Now it is paused. This generator is paused now. You want to resume it? How you can resume it? Sorry. You can simply say generator.next. it will again get resumed until next yield statement. So you will see value 2. So much flexibility. Again you can say generator.next value 3. Again you can say generator.next value 4. Again you say generator.next, it will say value undefined done true. It means your iteration is over. Now you can process further. This much of flexibility is not given by any iterator, and that's why I didn't give more focus on iterator, because iterators, if you write generators, generators are more flexible, more powerful, and more fancy looking as well, right? So this is generator. Now is it clear? First thing is it clear? I'll go one step further in generator, but is it clear till this point? So in generator you can call another function as well, which is another generator. So if I have a function, write function another generator, and this is my generator, so I will say this. I will say yield 1, or I will say yield 0. The first statement I'll do here is I'll call the function yield another generator. But because you are calling a generator, you again need to use asterisk here. This is the syntax. You are calling another generator, so you need to use asterisk here as well. So you can call another generator from generator. So what will be the output now? When I dot next, it will print what? It will print 0, because it will execute this expression. This expression is another generator. It will go and execute this generator. Because we are having only one yield, it will print 0, and it will again come here, and it will wait till somebody resumes. Okay, so for your understanding, I have like this 0.1, 0.2, and now I can copy this. So clear console. So I have created a generator. Now when I use generator.next, what will be printed? 0. That is fine, but now when I do generator.next, what will be printed? Why? Because our statement is our execution statement, right? Iteration is always through pointer, right? So when we iterate over to some data, it is pointer. When you use next, it goes to next value, and the pointer is there itself. So here also it is like that only. From here you go to here, and it prints, then it waits for somebody resume. So we again call next, so it goes here, again it waits for resume, and as soon as I say generator.next, it prints 0.2, and now there is no nil, no yield. So for this particular generator, done is true. So because the done is true, it will come here, and the next value it will print is 1. So you can call multiple generators inside another generator as well. So you can have as many generators into a single generator. And now you can iterate over to this using next, next, next. Fine. Okay, so we are almost at the end of the session. Classes we have already covered. Now, basically, I will show you something. uh, mm, mm-hmm. Probably a type here, playground. So I'm not sure whether it will convert in ES5 or not. I'll try. I am just trying to show you something to relate classes with actual JavaScript. Okay. So I will remove all this class person. You see here what is happening. It's very I'm just trying to show you what exactly is so when you write a class, how it gets converted into JavaScript. So you see, this class person is nothing but a function, immediately invocable function. Why immediately invocable function? To create the definition of a class. So this function gets executed automatically. So your your person is nothing but return of this function. Return of this function. This function returns what? This function. This function is what? A constructor. So this is normal way of ES6, a Java kind of way, whereas here you see normal our JavaScript, right? We normal day-to-day usage we write JavaScript. This is how we write. Even you don't need immediately invocable function. You can simply have this. Oh, I'm not able to edit it, but you don't need this immediately invocable function. You can simply write this function. So a class in ES6 is nothing but a function in JavaScript only. Because ultimately JavaScript is a functional programming language. Without function, nothing can be achieved. So what they have done, they have written a wrapper called classes, which will represent functions now. So they have just changed, they have just twisted the syntax of constructor functions in JavaScript. Right? So in normal JavaScript, you can create, so if you have heard about object-oriented JavaScript, you can create a class like this. I think I already explained this in last session. I don't remember because I don't remember whether I have covered or not. Somewhere, some batch I have covered. I don't know if it was your batch, but just for your information, right? Again, I will give a small, simpler syntax. Function customer fname lname this dot fname this dot lname. Now, when you create a customer, you can create this. Customer obj is equal to new customer. First name, last name, probably A and B, like this. Now this is ES5, normal JavaScript, how we create. In ES6, what is the difference? You write class, customer, and then you write constructor function. In that you write fname, lname. Now ES6 recommends if you use the same arguments as the parameters, input parameters, class properties. What I mean to say is if your input arguments and the class property is same, then use underscore. So when you don't use underscore, it creates problem. It will give you error. So it's always better to use underscore. This is similar to this. This is ES6. Now when I have a class like this, and if I have a class see what it is doing. It's doing quite complex JavaScript, but this is still can be achieved with normal constructor, fname, lname, and business type. Here I can use super. Okay, by the way, this is TypeScript's own playground. Okay, TypeScript's own playground. So you can write ES6 here and then it gets converted into normal ES5 JavaScript here. You can use it to play around with it. You can use super, fname, lname, and then you can set this dot underscore business type. So now in the front end as well, you can create your object model using classes, using extends. Okay, so here you see it's using extends. Here it has done various stuff. Now because it is transpilers, right? Converting ES5 to ES6, it is writing a very sophisticated JavaScript code, but we actually don't need this much line of code. 21, no. We don't need this much of lines of code. We can simply write a normal function here. Function, what was that? That was person. Okay, first function ABC, some blah 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 here. But then you can simply say ac.prototype, because it's prototype based inheritance. Prototype is equal to customer.prototype, and now you achieve inheritance. This is ES5, we are not going to use it anymore. But if you see here in the playground, they have done lots of stuff. I don't know why, but ultimately it's similar to this ES6. So person is a function, businessman is also a function, but it is constructor function, so that you can create the multiple objects of person or businessman. So these are classes in JavaScript. Okay, how you create person and businessman? Very simple. Person P, or no, not like this. No, this is Java. Let person obj is equal to new person, giving some name like this. That's it. Very simple. Here also you can have functions as well. So you can have display name, and you can write function here, as many functions as you want. And you see here what it has done: businessman.prototype.display name. Businessman.prototype.display name. Because it's prototype based inheritance, all the methods get associated with prototype. So this is how you write methods and your parameters in classes. Okay. So these are all classes. We are going to work a lot with classes, these extends, interfaces, inheritance. We will work while we work in Angular 2. So most important part of this ES6 will be classes. So how you write methods, how you write constructor, this all will be useful. Okay. And yes, you can write getters and setters as well. Very simple way is you can write like this, get, and then you can write app name, and then in that you can set in this dot app name. So because the get is like this, you can simply use object dot f name. So you do not need to call this method get. When you say object dot f name, it will automatically call this method. Or you can have like this. Then you need to call this method if you want the f name. So there are various ways to it. Okay. So classes, a simple stuff, nothing fancy here. You have a class, you are having attributes, you are having methods. So as I said, get name, get type, or you can have getters and setters as well, like this one, get name, set name. So you just need to call dot name. You do not need to call dot get name. You just need to call dot name, and it will internally call this method. So this is how you create classes. This is how you create getters and setters. Two ways of creating getters and setters. Either you write a Java based getter setter like this. Generally we do it in Java, or you can write JavaScript specific like this. In that you can simply access the variable name itself, this name. Whatever the function name is there, you can access that. Okay, the last part is modules. Very important for Angular 2. We are going to work a lot with this along with classes. So I will only explain the basic about this because ultimately we are going to learn a lot about modules. So and unfortunately we cannot execute this. So assume that I have a class here. What I do is when I want to so in Java you make a class public, right? If you want to make if you want to extend that class, you make public class, right? Same way in JavaScript we write export. Export means this class can later be imported in some JavaScript file. So I have a small class sample with one no property, only display method. Then I have another JavaScript file main.js. In that I'm importing that sample class from. You do not need to give extension, and then you can create simply object of that class. This is called module. So in lib you can create as many classes as you want of similar types like this, sample 3, sample 4, and so on and so forth. So that will become
Rahul.
Yes.
So is it kind of like packages in Java?
Yeah, it is kind of packages in Java.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It is kind of packages in Java only. Also, when you have a package, you can specify which class, right? So you say import java.util dot some palana dikana, and that's it. Here also you can mention specific classes and not all. So you say sample 2, and you don't want to import sample 3. So you can write like this as well. In the module, you can have as many exports as you want, but if you want a default class to be exported, then what you can do is you say export default, and then you do not need to give the name of that. You can still give the name like this, but generally people don't give a default name because it's a default class. A file can have only one default. So just like in Java, we can have only one public class per file. In JavaScript, in ES6, we can have only one default class per library. Okay. Then what you can do while importing, you do not need to use these curly braces. You can simply say any name. So my default, you can use any name rather than, so otherwise you need to use the same name. Here you can use any name, whatever you want, default class, and like this. So you do not need to use curly braces. We are going to write this code in Angular 2. Like this. Same code we will write a lot. In fact, if you see our project, SRC app, you see, we are using it. Export class, app component. So we are going to see, don't worry, but we will be using it a lot. You see, import this from this. This is library, Angular's library, core/testing, right? So these are all stuff which we are going to write when we are going to write the Angular 2 code. Star means everything, just like in Java. Star means every classes. Okay, so that's it. That's it. Our ES6 ends here. You can explore more if you want on the topics we have covered. What we have covered is set math, weak set math, generators, iterators. I haven't covered iterators in bit detail, but if you want to explore, you can explore more. Okay, and we have covered classes and the modules, right? That's it. So any questions? Okay, so that's it from my side. If we don't have any question, I will close the session.